there, everybody. Welcome to our latest edition of Big Brother 22 All-Stars Live Feed Spoilers. We'll give you an update on the aftermath of everything you saw on the show tonight. Also, there is a lot to say about the episode itself that we're going to get to at the start.
That edit, boy. Woo!
I am turned up. Like, this... If you do not want ranting at some point, just be forewarned, there's going to be ranting in the early going here. Before we get into any of it, though, if you guys do like this video, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, hit that notification bell for more, and support us further by checking those links in the description to the store, and also our Patreon. Thank you to everyone who is supporting us over there.
Do you want to start with the rant?
Okay.
Okay, we're going to start with the edit of Nicole tonight crying about Ian going up. Take it away, Matt.
I am so unhappy with all of this because I'm trying to take my personal... I admit I'm biased towards Ian because I like him, I relate to him, you know, I know what it's like to feel like an outsider, to be an outsider, but the thing is that I think Big Brother is doing a complete disservice to this entire situation because I understand that the situation with Nicole and Danny and these people laughing at Memphis, making fun of Ian and his autism, it got a lot of headlines earlier this week. I understand that it's a controversial thing and all of that. And I'm not saying to put it on the show for the sake of just putting it on the show. I do think these people need to be accountable, but I think this is actually important to the story for this week. I think it's very important. This is why Danny had such a hard time putting Ian on the block because she was aware, because of questions asked of her in the diary room, and same with Nicole, that this was an issue, that this is something that could be on the show. So they felt all this guilt over it. I think if that didn't happen, Danny probably wouldn't even thought for a second about this. She probably would have just put Ian on the block and called it a day. It is relevant to this situation, and yes, I understand they cannot show them saying, "Oh, I picked this up from the DR," but you could have a diary room with Nicole sort of saying, "Looking back at this conversation, I feel really bad that this happened and I didn't stand up for my friend," or something. Instead, it feels like they are just covering up for what Nicole and Danny did, laughing and not addressing it and telling a completely different story on the show. And I just think that is so disrespectful to the situation that is actually happening.
I think in general, CBS over the years has done a tremendously bad job of sweeping big issues like what happened with the Memphis situation, with a lot of the racism in the past that has gone on, or in general throughout a lot of seasons. They have swept so much of it under the rug. Even if you go back to season 15, the only person that was called out was Aaron. There was an entire group of people that were involved in this. And so when it didn't come up on the show tonight, and I'd seen some of, the comments and questions asking us if we thought it was going to be put on the show tonight, my answer was no, I didn't think it was, because CBS hasn't given me any reason to think that they were going to actually address some of the things that have been happening in the house this season as well as past seasons. So I have the disappointment, but I am not surprised.
I will say, ultimately, I'm not surprised either, and I haven't just been over here waiting for the moment to happen or anything, but it's just like I said, I feel like it is relevant for explaining what is actually going on this week, and I think it's going to look to casual viewers like, oh, Nicole is just sad because of her friend, and I don't want to speak for Nicole. I don't know Nicole. She may actually just be sad for Ian, but it feels, because of what we know, like Nicole may also be thinking, I need to protect my image because I have done something that is going to look bad on television if it makes it on television. They have put us in a place that we have to ask these questions, but they're not allowing casual viewers to think of this in a nuanced way, and that is so frustrating to me because we are people who pore over the live feeds. That is the real show to us.
Yeah, and I think Nicole is very acutely aware of the fact that there are tons of us live feeders out there that are watching this that we all know the whole story. So even for the casuals that are going to be watching, they will probably find out about this. And because it has made so many headlines, I think that I can't speak for Nicole. This is just my theory.
Yeah.
That she is just, it's complicated. She has a lot of mixed emotions. I don't think she dislikes Ian. I think that she participated in something she knew she shouldn't have, or at least now she knows she shouldn't have. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that she should know that she shouldn't have done that. But we're in this situation, and she did it. Someone had to tell her it was wrong. Yep. Here we are. So now she's conflicted, and she's got, I think her image is something that she is worried about. But I don't think she dislikes Ian either. And I think she's put herself in this really weird situation, making a final two with someone who is not in her alliance. This is a very weird move. I never really understood why she did this in the first place. Why she didn't then bring Ian in. This is going to be your number one ally. Why is he not brought into this alliance? This puts you in this super weird spot that if he ever ends up on the block, you can't do anything about it.
And now we're going to probably see on the next episode a lot more of this like Shakespearean tragedy for Nicole, which is still not going to paint itself as entirely accurate.
No, this really is something, I agree, that should have been put on the show, and not just to expose what all of them participated in, but because it does matter to this story. This is why Danny was so conflicted about things. This is why Nicole is upset as well. It is all part of it.
Okay, now that we've gotten the rant out of the way, which I think it's I hate it about this episode. I will say there is some fun to be had in this episode as well. David's, I don't want to call this an Academy Award-winning performance. It might be teetering on a Razzie performance from David. I enjoyed every second of it, though. I'm not going to lie. David, oh, by the way, actually, I do need to ask you, did you use the power on me?
Oh, my goodness. When he went up to Cody and Cody just burst out laughing and put his arm around him, I was like, dude, are you serious? I was laughing so hard at that.
David is asking Tyler, who Tyler knows that Danny is kind of also coming to use the power. Okay, David, if you're going to pull this, you can't pull it the people who are obviously going to be targets of the head of household. It is, David, I love you, and yet you drive me crazy, and that's probably why I love you, and I'm glad you're on this season, but this is just pure madness, David. You must stop the madness.
I get why David thought this was a good idea, and in theory, it could have been a good idea if he had any real solid allies that other people in the house might think someone might use it on him. He could have just said nothing. Even that would have been better. Just the disruptor power was used and then leave it alone. You don't need to go around and say any of this. Nobody even asked you for this information, at least according to the edit.
I watched Memphis's face when David started the emotional thing after the power was used on him, and he was getting all sad, and Memphis was just on the verge of breaking out laughing, because it was even in that moment, for all the garbage I will continue to say about Memphis, because I do not like him in this game, it's he knew that very second that David was putting it on. It was so clear just looking at him.
And it was so interesting, because later we saw Davon kind of be really? Come on. She may have been putting it on too, but her face and her mouth dropped, gaping open, just I was dying. I'm is she really this surprised, or does she know and she's just acting it?
I
love her, man.
Okay, well, we'll stay on Davon, because this Power of Veto competition,
I loved it.
This, I can say this officially, as someone with mild cerebral palsy, this would be the one competition you could put me in there with no other competitors and I would still lose it. I would be worse at this than any other competition in the history of Big Brother.
I really liked it. It was just the moment that Tyler breathed out and all his cans fell over. Okay, there were some moments in this episode I really liked. I really liked this, Veto. It was really cute.
It was fun. I always love the terrible Big Brother special effects, and it's like Nicole activating what looked like they had just like stolen the gun from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and threw it into the room. And like I loved like a lot of the elements of this, and it was innovative and it was different. It wasn't a challenge that I think really benefited anyone, but you know how Ian was at the end of this where he like kicked something in the diary room? That would have been me like an hour into this guy. Everybody else would have already left. I would be like, I'm gonna finish this challenge and you're gonna drag me out of here. That would be my 24-hour isolation, just hating myself trying to do this stupid challenge.
I liked it. It was cute.
It was cute. I am bitter, like we were about to talk about some stuff from the live feeds with Ian. Because Ian, he's doing something that, as much as I love Ian, I never really loved this idea, this strategy of telling people that if you go to the jury, that you're potentially going to be bitter or you're not going to want to vote for the people who executed this move. I can't really think of that many times where that's actually been that effective of a campaign.
Yeah, it's a tough type of campaign. It isn't really that effective. At the same time, Ian only had one alliance member here. And so going to people at this point in the game, this is the mistake that Ian made for all these weeks, is only having Nicole and not making any other connections and alliances. He's made some friendships. Everybody likes Ian, but he didn't do enough to get even just another one or two people on his side. So he's kind of backed himself into a corner where he doesn't have a lot of options except to tell Enzo, you know what, I'm going to vote for Tyler if he's in the final two. So basically, if you're up against him, you don't have my vote.
I don't think this works. I think this does expose some of the flaws in Ian's game, because I do think Ian is a very good game player. But even back in 14, the Quack Pack didn't get together like day one or day two. Ian sort of took his time, and he was an outsider early on. And I think he waited too long this time. Like, it feels like he waited even longer, and because of that, he's sort of put too much stock in Danny and also put too much stock that Nicole is going to be able to influence people. And I think he's mistaken now. I think he knows he's in some danger, but I think he sort of feels like, okay, my allies will sort of help to really pull me through. But Nicole is really his only ally.
Yeah, and it's really strange actually watching Ian go through this right now, because the season that he won, the reason that he won was because he was pretty good at jury management. And now he's managing the jury that, sort of the potential jury, by basically threatening people and saying, if you vote me out now, I'm going to be bitter.
And he's putting his trust, and he's focusing in on some of the wrong people. He did try to talk a little bit to David, which is important because David is one of the votes that could be essential towards him. He, made it clear that he wasn't coming after David. I don't think that's probably going to be enough to do anything in the larger picture, but he's also focusing on Christmas, which once again, Christmas and Tyler have a final two people. Not going to work out well for Ian.
People are not figuring that out. It's so crazy. And that was one of the things from this episode, is seeing Davon and that conversation with Danny where she basically said, I need to use this because there is a giant alliance and I know that me and Kevin and David are not part of it.
And that read is great. It's like, yes, they're putting it together. Come on, Davon. But then comes the problem where I think maybe David's read on this kind of complicates everything, but I think Davon, Kevin, David, I think they all realize there is a bigger alliance they're not part of, but I think their understanding of the hierarchy is wrong with it, where I think they think that Tyler is more on the outs with some of it than Ian is, and I think they view, especially David, views Ian as more of a core member, when in reality this is not the case.
It also always just kind of blows my mind every time I watch an episode like tonight to see like Christmas and Danny sitting around talking about how Enzo is not part of this alliance, and because he feels like he is, because he is in alliances with that whole alliance.
Yo, that's it. I'm in every alliance. Yo, F-bomb, I've got this. That's it. Like, yeah. Enzo is doing it. He's playing so well. But we got to talk about Nicole's plan that she sort of came up with today.
Yeah.
I've tried to tinfoil hat this to the best of my ability, because there's some weird scenarios here. But
yeah, it's kind of weird.
Nicole seems to want to try to get Kevin, Davon, and David to vote in order to keep Ian, and she's claiming that the reason why for this is that after the fact she wants to say that she voted to keep Ian, and she wants to try to throw David out there as someone who actually voted to keep Tyler. That way she can sort of make some distrust happen with David, Davon, and Kevin, that they can't really trust David anymore.
I'm kind of laughing at this whole thing anyways, because it's just ridiculous. I mean, they all know that to some degree that they all have to work together and that they are all on the outs. Like, I don't know why Nicole thinks that anyone's gonna really believe that on this other side of the house.
This is why I tried to get crazy tinfoil hat with this, because it feels like this is a lot of effort for something that's not really that important. But
no,
I just feel like maybe, it's probably not real, but maybe Nicole is thinking, if I get these three people, that I can vote to evict Tyler, and then it can be 4-4, and then Danny has to break the tie. Maybe Danny will side with me, and that's... I don't think this is really what Nicole is thinking, but we know that she does want to save Ian, and she wouldn't probably be bold enough to say this out loud.
Yeah, I mean, these are the times that I wish that she just spoke to us more, and she was a little more candid with the light feeders, because she really isn't, and it would be nice to know what is going on through her head with this. Is she trying to find a way to get this to happen? I just don't think... I think if she gets it to happen where there's the 4 votes and Danny has to break the tie, Danny will know that this is Nicole and that this is all gone this way, and she's going to be really mad. So she may not do what Nicole wants anyways, and then Nicole will have burned her game for nothing.
Yeah, I don't think Danny is going to vote to keep Ian in that situation. Based on what we've seen on the show tonight in the diary rooms, Danny has totally half-measured, screwed up this entire ordeal. She put up a target. That target and Tyler's still going to go after her. He's going to stay in the game. Bad all around, Danny.
Yeah, this was a really bad HOH.
All right, the only other thing we got to say, this has just annoyed me greatly, is it was so much fun seeing Davon celebrate winning her first comp. Like, it was great seeing Enzo celebrate winning his first HOH.
Yeah.
And then Christmas tonight, is basically acting like, oh, Davon's acting so different now because all of a sudden, 3 seasons in, she finally wins a competition. She's like being so condescending.
Yes, and she should be acting different and excited because she won it after 3 seasons. This is a glorious win, and it feels good.
Let's remind everyone, Christmas, you have won 2 HOHs on 2 different seasons. Well, you won 1 HOH 19, 1 HOH this season, in which you did literally nothing, and you managed to win those HOHs.
Yeah, and you walked around in your robe and acted like the queen. So does it change people? Sure.
Yes.
And that's okay. Except for the robe thing. But that's okay for Davon.
Don't wear the robe, people. It is a curse.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll wrap this up, but are you as heated as we're heated about the editing in this episode? What are your hopes? Do you think Nicole is up to something with this plan? Let us know in the comments, and if you do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, support us further, check those links to the store, our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.